to the Metal Command Podcast.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you. Super excited to be here today. I have a great interview in store for everybody. And as usual, of course, if you do like what you see and hear on this podcast, by all means, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell to be notified anytime I do post any kind of content. And if you are following this show on any other form of social media, by all means, give the show a like and a follow there. Today's show, I have an interview with myself and singer George Call from the band Aska. Aska, of course, is a band from Texas. They ended up getting their start. It's an interesting story. They ended up getting their start playing on a USO tour. And for those of you that do not know what that is basically a band going to different areas of the world where U.S. soldiers are deployed, either in peacetime or wartime, and that band plays for the soldiers, kind of help boost morale, stuff like that. So that's how the band ended up getting its start. George does tell that story. George has also sang in some really great bands, aside from his own band, which he has now fronted that band for over 30 years. George sang in the band Clovenhoof and recorded 3 really exceptional albums with them. He sang in the band Banshee and, of course, sang in the classic American power metal band Omen. And so he's got a really great resume, not to mention the fact that you've heard me talk about the Empires of Eden project and me doing guest vocals on the last album. The album before that, Architect of Hope, George sang guest vocals on that album, as did I, and that is how I ended up getting to know him initially. And that was, over 10 years ago now. So the new album, Night Strike, that is out, that Aska just put out, it is now out on all digital platforms worldwide. The band recently signed to BraveWords Records, and it did physically come out in 2024 and actually was, I believe, in the top 20 as far as my end of the year albums of the year list for the Metal Command podcast. So this interview is great. This band is absolutely phenomenal. They have a new song out, a new video for a song called 1944, which is all about World War II and is the first song on the album Night Strike. So with that said, here is the interview with myself and George Call from the band Aska. Welcome, everybody, back to the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you. And, of course, on my show here for another interview is George Call from the band Aska. The band, the newest album, Night Strike, was in the top 20 albums of the year list for the show for 2024. And, of course, has a lot of great stuff coming up, including a new record deal with BraveWords Records, a new video that will be coming out. So we have a lot of cool stuff to talk about, man. It's great to always have you back on this show, dude. It's always a blast having you on here.
I'll always come on your show, Tony, because the Metal Command, it's my kind of stuff, man. It's where I live. It runs in my blood, that
yeah.
Shows we talk about metal, love metal, breathe it, piss it, shit it, everything that you do with metal, it's the same things I do with metal. And so it's always fun to get back here and
cool.
Chat with you.
Cool. So let's talk about this, man. You had you had a new album come out last year. Let's talk about this new deal you have with BraveWords Records. Let's talk about that because that's the most recent thing that's happened. And Giles spoke very highly of you, obviously about, how good the band was, and you're now part of that label. So talk about how that whole thing happened and how excited are you for this?
Well, for us, it's a big honor. I like not just what Giles has done, as an A&R guy for BraveWords, but what he's done with Warlord,
Yeah.
So when they hit us up, when it's like this, man. When BraveWords comes knocking, right? When they knock, you answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we've always been the kind of band that's very hands-on, do it ourselves, reticent to let someone else take over the reins. But in this case, we were very eye to eye with Giles musically, politically, just our ways of thinking were very simpatico. And
Yeah.
so when they came along and sang our praises and thought that they could do something with Aska, at that time we actually had been talking to some Greek labels that wanted to re-release some of our older music and take on Night Strike and release it at the time. And we said, we kind of, had a band meeting and just a few actually, and we decided, I think BraveWords is the way to go with this deal here. And they were very excited to get on the Aska train and
yeah,
help push us to our maximum potential. And I got to tell you, man, they've really been on the ball. They have they've been pushing us and lighting fires under our asses, and on the March 21st, we are doing the digital release for the album, and they've got all kinds of video content that they had us record and do, and which we'll be releasing in the days that come and follow.
Yeah.
So we're quite thrilled to be with.
And I think that partnership, you have their expectations have always, the way you read, when you read, like when they talk about working with bands, is that they want bands that are going to match that work ethic. And the one thing I think that's interesting, I did an episode on this show about scams. And one of the things that's interesting is that, I was talking about looking at a band's track record. Like if you're a band, you look at the track record of the person that you're looking to either sign with or obviously manage a band, right? And Michael, their PR guy, put a comment in there, and I think it was really, really good about, you don't just have to find somebody that's had a track record of working with some really good bands, but you got to find someone that's not afraid to be honest with you. That's not going to be an ass kisser, right? I mean, essentially, you got to, because that person is going to guide you. And the guys that are associated with the BraveWords label, I know Giles isn't like that. Michael definitely is a guy that's not like that. When I say not like that, I'm talking somebody that's going to tell you what you want to hear. Giles and Michael are going to tell you the honest truth. And that's one of the things I do like about this record label. And I think that's part of the reason that you fit so well with them, because you are that type of dude, right? So
I think it's the only way to be,
Right, exactly. So, but anyway, man, I think the album is fantastic. And as I said, it's a top 20 album for me this past year. And it's interesting because now it's coming out digitally, and you got a video coming out. Talk about that. The first song, 1944, I believe you have a video coming out for, and talk a little bit about the making of that video and when that comes out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, 1944, as you know, is the album opener.
Yeah.
It's the lead-in track to the Night Strike album, and we were, it was always a video we wanted to address. Our goal was always, we were going to do one video per song on the album.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, one of the ones that we were always going to do, and we had actually done some months prior. But even when it was set to private where no one could see it, and we had it, uploaded on YouTube, we would get strikes. We would get strikes for the video because we used, those that know what the song about, it's a historical fiction song.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on World War II. And it's one of those, it's like, everybody's had, or maybe read those books or seen those movies that posit these what if questions, like what if Japan hadn't attacked Pearl Harbor and the U.S. hadn't formally joined World War II? What would have happened, or what would have happened if the killer John Wilkes Booth had missed Lincoln or not killed him? These are pivotal points in history that had one thing changed, we'd be living in a different world. What if the the assassin's bullet had missed John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
Well, why were they trying to stop him? These things would have come out and it would have altered world history as we know it. Well, in 1944, we put forth the question, what if certain events had played out differently? And, what would have been the end result? And we play it out. And in the video, because it is a World War II song, we wanted to use World War II imagery. So our initial cuts of the video had, full, you had German soldiers and tanks and, panzers and, swastikas and all that stuff in there to show the German side of the equation. Just as we had, the Japanese rising sun and the symbol, the USA, with the star and the stars and stripes, all these, we had all that symbology in there.
Yeah.
And, the sides fighting each other. And without even releasing it to the public, the YouTube algorithm would just blast it every time. I guess they would see the swastikas,
right,
or they'd see Hitler or whatever it was, and they didn't like it, and they would just immediately give it a strike. So we take the video out, re-edit, pull out everything that we thought was controversial or was setting off the YouTube firewalls or algorithms.
Yeah.
And we'd still get strike. So in the end, we had to make the thing almost, it's the video that you're going to see is a far cry from what on the 20th when it's released. It's a far cry from what we had there originally.
Right.
It's almost like the English food version of what had originally been there. You've got it's this bland, unsalted, unspiced thing that, yes, you'll get the music and the song and everything. That'll come across just fine. You'll see the band playing, but all the garnishes that we had originally put into the video are gone because YouTube is so pussified that they won't allow this historical fiction on its site.
Right.
And keep in mind, the opening salvo, the first thing you see, the opening scene on the video, is a disclaimer saying, that the following work is a work of historical fiction. Aska doesn't, support or condone, racial, religious, or political violence of any kind. We're not.
Yeah.
This is not advocating or pushing for any such thing. This is just simply a work of historical fiction, as we've seen in many books, television series, movies. We're not the first to come up with this storyline,
right,
or the situation,
right.
But certainly they don't want anybody pushing forth any kind of agenda or any type of story that might offend somebody. It's just ridiculous in the extreme.
Well, yeah, no, I gotcha.
Yeah, go back to history and comedians offend. Music, just our very genre of music at one point was considered completely blasphemous, heretical, and offensive.
Yeah.
So, let alone delving into some of the themes that the music deals with, or portrays to their audiences. So, at one point, Elvis was offensive, right? What are you going to do? Ban Elvis?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, people. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. They only filmed him from the waist up on TV. Yeah, because the way he danced.
When you look back on it, right, it's ludicrous, and how the goalposts change, how they move. But here's for me, the joke of it, right? You get a woman like Lizzo, morbidly obese, grossly overweight, singing about her wet ass pussy.
That wasn't her. That wasn't her that did that.
Oh, that was okay. Who was that? Who was that artist?
I don't remember. I think Cardi B. That was the name of the one.
Maybe, I'm sorry.
Yeah. By the way,
All right,
Lizzo lost a ton of weight.
okay. Well, I mean, I don't, man. A plus size woman, a skinny woman makes no difference to me. I think women as a gender and as a whole are beautiful creatures. Right?
Yeah. No, I gotcha.
It doesn't matter to me. But what does matter to me is that these grossly offensive quote women singing about the lubrication status of their vaginas. This thing infiltrates, mass culture and mass media, and it's everywhere, and it tops out the charts, right?
No, I gotcha. No, I get it.
Yeah, and then, but here we are trying to sing something, something that someone could learn from. It's based in history, it's a fiction. It's almost a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
And no, we're not going to have any of that. We won't have any of that. You sing about all the wet pussies you want. Sing about hard dicks. Sing about whatever. But don't you dare sing about historical events and what could, don't bring up these cautionary tales where this could happen. Don't let history repeat itself.
Right.
Because one step away from everything being topsy-turvy, the world being upside down.
Yeah.
No, they don't want. I mean, I swear the powers that be, the people that are running these mass media platforms, the tech giants are pathetic in the extreme.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't hide it. I won't mince words about it. I think it's pathetic. I think the people running those platforms are just simpish in the extreme. It's almost laughable the things that they do allow versus the things they don't. Ice-T singing about cop killers, right? Yeah, mm-hmm. Cop killer. It was a controversy, but they allowed it. Nobody hit it, But heaven forbid you sing about one of the taboo subjects. Don't sing about Hitler. Don't show swastika.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
So, well, the band's beginnings. You have an interesting story about how this band started out because you were playing in front of troops, American troops, the USO circuit. For those that don't know what that is, I'm curious. Why don't you let people know and talk about how this band got started doing that because it's an interesting way for a heavy metal band to get its start.
It's a bit different, isn't it? In the early days, when we released our first album,
mm-hmm.
I was familiar with it. The cover has a American bald eagle, with an American flag behind it, and then it's kind of poking through the mist, the red and blue mist. It's this nice theme, but also reflective of the colors of our country, right?
Yeah.
I grew up in the Panama Canal Zone, and at the time in the band, 3/4 of the band were all from the Panama Canal Zone. The Canal Zone was a former U.S. territory.
Yeah.
Smack dab inside of the Republic of Panama. So if you can imagine a U.S. territory within the boundaries of another country. Okay. So we always knew we were part of the USA. We belonged to USA. John McCain, the former presidential U.S. candidate, was born in the Canal Zone, Coca Solo, the Canal Zone, the Atlantic side.
Yeah.
I was a Pacific sider. I was on the other side. So we grew up in this environment, and the U.S. Southern Command was headquartered in the Panama Canal Zone. So the first rock band I ever saw play live was an Army band. And they were Army guys. So we'd go to the bases, we'd hang out, we'd go shopping there, we'd see the bands there, we'd go to the whatever there was, the carnivals that would come once a year, that would bring in bands from the States to entertain the U.S. Military, the civilian infrastructure that was there to maintain the canal and their dependents, which is what I was and the guys in my band.
Mm-hmm.
So when we started Aska, we'd been in the Canal Zone, but always knowing that because in 1977, Jimmy Carter signed a treaty with Panama that effectively started this 20-year process or 20-something year process of reverting the U.S. territory, the U.S. holdings to Panama, right? So basically ceding control of the canal to Panama and giving up all the lands and closing all of the military and civilian installations in towns, right? So once that was signed, we knew that our time in Panama was it was like one of those, the sand clocks. You turn it over and the sand runs out. We knew that the sand was running out for our time in Panama. So we decided, we're going to come to the States, and I decided to come to my dad's home state, which was Texas. And I got with a guy that I'd played with, an Army brat that I'd played with down there, and we were going to make a band. And so we came to the U.S. having that full experience of, having grown up around the military and doing that. So we were into that. That was our thing. We were very patriotic, very pro-U.S., pro-military. And when we decided to put together our band, we said, you know what? Let's have an American eagle, the bald eagle on the cover, the flag in the background. And our look on stage, we'll wear camouflage like the military and combat boots, and we'll have dog tags on our, for necklaces, and it'll be a very pro-U.S., pro-patriotic approach and image that we'll portray, just to be noticed, and because it's something that we lived, we felt, it's in our part of our inner core, and that's how we started the band, and we released our first album that way.
Cool.
Well, one night we were at the Basement in Dallas, famous for the fact that Pantera filmed a video there. I think their first video, I think they filmed maybe their walk video, maybe their Cemetery Gates. One of their videos was filmed there at the Basement. And great club, packed, with metalheads all the time. And we were doing a show there one night, and a guy approaches our crew and says, hey, I'd like to talk to these guys. I'd like to talk to the band. And of course, everybody in those, in those days, this was the 90s, the early 90s. Grunge still hadn't shown its face. Right? Okay. This was still kind of the tail end of the metal. Though nobody knew it at the time. Nobody knew that metal was about to take a nosedive off the cliff. But this guy wanted to talk to us. Well, everybody wanted to talk to us. We were a very popular band at DFW. Remain so to this day. I mean, we have been for years. And we'd get, huge crowds and numbers of people, and everybody wanted to talk. So we kind of put the guy as a guy wanted to talk to us. Well, we were talking to these girls over here. So we kind of put the dude off, and he starts getting upset. He gets kind of angry, and he tells my roadie, Alan Farrell, he goes, hey, you know what? I'm out of here. You tell those guys when they decide to get serious, to give me a call. Here's my card. And so immediately my roadie, Alan, comes to me. He goes, hey, man, the guy's leaving, and he gave me this card to give to you. And he says, when you guys decide to get serious, I go, what? Wait a minute. That doesn't normally happen. Usually, the punters, the fans, they'll wait. They want to talk to you. They'll wait. This guy was leaving. That's unusual of it in itself. And I looked at the card, and it said, whatever, Entertainment Services, USOAP. What? Hold on. Let me get that. Don't let him go. Let me go. And we immediately stopped what we were doing and went to talk to the guy. Shook our hands. He told us he very much enjoyed our performance. He thought that what we did was really cool up there with the military, uniforms and our BDUs, our combat boots, our dog tags, and the flag. We had 2 American flags behind us, and we had 2 Dragon launchers on stage. We had camo netting on the stage. The whole thing was decked out like something out of a war movie, right? The entire stage was decked out that way. And he goes, this is really cool. I think it would build the morale of our troops stationed in hardship locations around the world. And now keep in mind, this is around the time of Desert Storm, Desert Shield, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, oh yeah, you think so? Yeah, well, we're all about it, dude. We're into the military. So he set up a meeting with us on Monday to talk about potentially booking us for touring the military circuit, right? And so we went, met with the guy, met at his hotel. He was staying in Irving, Texas, which was the home of the Cowboys at the time. We went. The guy was a captain in the USMC, Semper Fi, right? U.S. Marine Corps, and his job was he worked with the entertainment office for the U.S. government or whatever. And basically, he scouted us. He came, he saw us play, thought we'd be great because our message was so positive and pro-U.S. while still rocking hard. Bringing the metal, bringing the rock. And their circuit was full of country bands, R&B bands, comedy acts, but they had no rock bands. They had no metal bands. And he thought we were custom built for this. Made us an offer, and he wanted to send us to the Middle East, to Saudi Arabia, to Kuwait, to Bahrain. We're like, well, isn't that a war zone? Isn't that active? He goes, yep. I can't, promise or guarantee your safety, but it is what it is. And, and we said, where do we sign? We were ready, dude. We were gung ho. Which it may be early to touch on this, but when I think of what Iron Savior did lately, and you can go into explain that in a minute, but what they did lately was, it's not safe to play in the USA. I just find it so cowardly. Especially, we were going to active war zones. We went, it started with Saudi and progressed. We went to Bosnia, to Croatia, to Serbia, and we walked down Sniper Alley where we landed in places where immediately we were issued Kevlar helmets and flak jackets. We had convoys that would go drive ahead of us and stop every 20 minutes to check the roadway to scan for mines with their minesweepers. And we would be doing shows in Croatia and here, in the background, you'd hear automatic gunfire in the background, in the distance, not the far distance, but so this is the kind of thing that we were, dying to get into, to go and do, and then to hear somebody not want to come play the U.S. because they don't like who we elected president is dangerous. Come on, man.
Well, I'm not going to. I already explained all that in an episode, but since we're on that subject, since you're bringing that up, you are obviously someone that very openly helped elect the president.
Very openly, yeah.
Yeah, you had the Trump commercial. I remember that.
Yeah, man.
But so
George Call commercial. It was not a Aska or Banshee, any of the bands. It was just something I felt called to do.
No, I gotcha. But here's the thing. So obviously, the way that post was put, and some of the comments and stuff like that. How did you feel about that when you saw that? As somebody that voted for him, what were your thoughts on them doing that? Because I've never heard of a band doing that.
Yeah, I thought it was the biggest pussy move that I've seen in a long time, and I've seen some real douche moves from bands.
Yeah,
especially during the COVID era. I've seen some real douchey bands out there do some real douchey stuff.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, when you look back on it, you see the level of hypocrisy that some of these bands engaged in.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of soy that these guys, use one of your favorite terms, right? That they sweat out of their pores. To make some of the moves they made. They really, if they're not embarrassed today, then they have no sense of irony, no sense of shame,
Yeah.
no sense.
I get it. The thing is that there's a lot of people that think like that over there that are actually, legit have fears of stuff like that, and I already said in the podcast episode I did, it's the wrong decision. But, again, for you, were you like, I don't want to use the word offended, but did it piss you off? Or you just kind of like, do you think that they probably burned a bridge over here? How do you feel about that? Because again, you're going to have people that are going to support it. You're going to have people that are going to obviously bash them for it. My whole episode was really explaining where they were coming from. I disagree. I disagree with the decision, and I'll tell you why when you give me your thoughts on it. But
I'll tell you this: my thoughts are, I don't hate them. I don't know them. Is it something that maybe someday they can move beyond or they can get past? Of course, there's nobody here holding grudges. Some people hold grudges, but Americans generally aren't. We're not like that, and we're men. Men aren't like that, I think men, like two guys, can tell each other to fuck off to each other's face, and the next day they're having a beer together. Women tend to be real catty, like I'm not going to talk to them for the next 10 years.
I don't know. I think the States has changed a bit with that. But
well, yeah, you're right. But at least, certainly it seems that the leftists are like that. I think guys on our side of the equation, we're a bit more live and let live. I don't care what somebody wants to do with their life, how they want to think, do it, man, knock yourself out. But that move right there, when I look at my band, who was, hey, we've got to go to a place that has mines in the road and the buildings are completely shot up and destroyed, and we're going to go perform there? Where do we sign? How soon can we get there?
Yeah.
That speaks volumes of difference between some supposed heavy metal. When the word heavy metal, it's supposed to be tough and strong, powerful, and you're going to like a Michael Jackson, Milli Vanilli style. That's the attitude that's given off when you say, I'm not going to, because it's so dangerous. They have a new president and he's mean. He says mean things. And come on, man.
Oh no, I get it. So I'm going to give
where's the testosterone,
I think politics aside, let's throw politics out for a second here.
But it was totally political.
Yeah, I'm not. The thing is, first of all, I've known those guys a long time. They're good dudes, as I've said. But let's throw politics aside for a minute, and I'm going to tell you why it's a mistake. Because they don't regret it. And look, you know what? I'm going to give them respect for the fact that they doubled down on it. They didn't go and, like some of these people, I regret it, even though we got some backlash. They doubled down on it. I disagree with the decision, but they at least didn't, go back and say, we regret that. We're not going to do, you know what I'm saying? You know how that goes. Someone says something, they get called out, and then they apologize. So they're not going back on it. But here's where it hurts bands like this, because here's what happened. So they're playing Prague Power, which is not an easy festival to put together. You have promoters there who had to pay a lot of money for the visas and who had to promote that show. And you obviously had people who bought a ticket specifically to see them, right? Now, maybe they didn't burn the bridge with, let's say they didn't burn the bridge with the Prague Power people, because I don't know anybody there, right? But here's the thing. German heavy metal bands, as a history, it has been very difficult for power metal bands or hard rock bands from that area to gain an audience here. I believe it took except like 5 albums to really become a band that was a household name. Scorpions, the same thing. Love it. They released, I think they really heavily invested in them up until Love It First Sting came out in like 1984 for them to become as big as they were, right? But the thing is, we live in a climate now where, a lot of these European bands, and they come over here, a promoter has to take a risk, on that band, an investment of time, money, energy, all that stuff. And then what happens is when somebody sees that, maybe they don't burn the bridge with that festival, but promoters, especially in today's day and age where we have the cost of touring skyrocketing, you're going to have far fewer people that would take a chance on a band like that because of something. Because here's the thing: if you put in all that time and energy and investment, and then a politician does something they don't like, and then all that is gone, So from a business standpoint, because most bands from over there, they don't talk about their political views, right? I mean, I can tell you flat out, I know bands over there that agree lockstep with you and me, and I know bands that don't, but they say nothing about it, right? And I respect them for the fact that at least they didn't go back and say, yeah, we made a mistake or we regret it. They're not going back on what they said, which actually, if you apologize at that point, the 50% of the people you didn't piss off are going to hate you. Then 100% of the people hate you. Right. So, but I get it. I think it was the wrong decision, but you got to look, but from the business standpoint, it's not a good look. Right. I mean, that's how it is. I mean, it's just how it is. Right. So
people they become, they won't want to get their feet wet with you again because they're like, oh, are they going to cancel because
right? And that's
market or the politics or set them off. It's who wants to invest tickets and time and promotion and money.
Well, that's and again, we live in a very volatile environment to tour, and that from the cost standpoint, so that's the only thing I'll say that really was a positive. That post had a record amount of people as far as interactions, and it's the old. And I know you're a Kiss fan, dude. It's the old Gene Simmons adage. It's like when the Kiss caskets came out. Gene did not care if he sold one of them, but Kiss making an album equals 100 articles. A casket, whether he sells it or not, 700 articles. And if nobody is talking about you, good or bad, you are irrelevant. I don't think that was their intention, but that happens. But this is why I love Gene Simmons. Even if you're not a Kiss fan, a lot of people hate him, but he had that mentality. So, I mean, from that perspective, they benefited a little bit, but I think that I agree. I mean, I think it's a bad decision. Yeah. No,
it's always, in my band, I've always had this attitude. It's better to play than not to play. And say, well, even if the gig is a shit gig, it's a horrible club, it's a bad PA, it's a terrible, it's better to play than not to play, because when you play, guess what? Your name is out there somewhere. You're being advertised. You're being seen to talk about. Versus, well, we didn't want to do that show because I actually faced when I was in Club and Hoof and we were touring Canada. We had a band in one of the major cities out there. I think it was Ottawa. A band refused to play with Cloven Hoof because they'd heard, some of the politics of the guys in the band, and we don't want to be associated with those guys. So, well, guess what? The opening spot that they gave up was filled in less than 2 minutes by bands that said, I don't give a shit what they think or do or worship or fuck or whatever. I don't care. We want to play. So the guy just trying to make his stand on, make his political stand. Nobody even knows I couldn't tell you who that band was today because they didn't play. Nobody knows who they are. Nobody cares. And so they stood to their guns and they stuck by their politics, but who cares? Because nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
Whereas the other band came on board, came out and played. We made friends with. We kept in touch with. Traded discs and everything, and just had a good time. And then they missed also at that show. I remember we had people from other bands that came out there and came on stage with us, and it was just great. fantastic show. They really missed out. It could have been something special for them, but
Yeah.
they chose not to.
You talked about back catalog albums, that obviously, we talked before here. Have you talked with BraveWords about possibly reissuing any of those? Because some of those aren't available.
Yeah, we get hit up, and I mean, all the time, Tony. I'd be bullshitting you if I told you it was less than 2-3 labels a year hit us up to re-release our back catalog, especially.
How many of them are scams?
No, they're all true.
They're like legit. They're not scammers trying to get you, because there's a lot of those out there.
No, these are legit labels that we are aware of and we know.
Mm-hmm.
They're most Greece and Germany, and they hit us up, and these are bands with a reputation. Now, keep in mind, I think that all labels, to one extent, they're in it for the label. So, it depends on what you mean by scam, because the labels are in it for label. They're not in it for bands. They're in it for them.
Yeah.
Bands is a means to an end. But, we constantly get hit up, and they, we're going to pay you this, and we're going to want to release this many, and you'll get this, and we'll get this, and this will be the term period. And we always look at it, and we just say, no.
Yeah.
In the end, we always back out because, one, we don't think that the first album is on par with the stuff that came after. Right?
Yeah.
And everybody always wants those first two. Now, the second,
on par, like from a songwriting standpoint or production?
From a production standpoint, I think, and the songs were very diverse in the sense that they were very. It was more like Dawkins than Priest meets Maiden.
Okay.
Which is kind of where we are now, or where we kind of morphed in 2000 and beyond, or maybe 97 and beyond. But when we started, we were more all over the place musically. So almost for the same reasons, Pantera never wanted to re-release their first 4 albums.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah. Before Cowboys from Hell, they were like, those albums didn't exist. But they had 4. Well, we had 2. But the second one, I have no issue with. I would like to release that. But I think that we would make, because it is a past release, it's not going to make anything, it's not going to break us or do anything new for us. I think, and it's been out of print for so long, that I think if we did it ourselves, if the band just released it ourselves, we would make money hand over fist on the thing, right? Now, clearly we're not dying for money or anything because we haven't released it. It says it's been years. But I think when we do, we, the band, should reap the fruits of that labor, that past labor.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the newer albums that have been re-released and have seen print in the last many years, I wouldn't mind, maybe doing something like that with the label, or, doing a new record. But, certainly the first 2, which are the ones that everybody wants, because that's the one most fans, those are the 2 that most fans are missing to complete their collection. And those 2 have never been released on vinyl. They've been on cassette, and they've been on CD, but those first 2 have never had a vinyl release, which is, what everybody wants. I want it myself, because as an avid vinyl collector, I'd like to have it for my own collection. But eventually, either at some point somebody will make us an offer we just cannot refuse, and that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Or we'll do it ourselves. We've had offers, but they're not offers that make us say, holy Christ, look at this. We've got to do it,
Some guy that looks like Marlon Brando from The Godfather says, I got an offer you can't refuse.
Got an offer, can't refuse, you hear me? But yeah, if something like that came down the pike, yeah, I mean, we get offers all the time, but they're not ones we can't refuse.
No, I gotcha. No, I understand. So let's talk about the newest album again really quick. It was out last year. You seemed to get a lot of positive reactions to it. I mean, there were websites that I know for a fact, I don't think I've ever seen your name mentioned, but you were on a lot of these top 10, top 20 lists.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Would you say that this album was the best received album that you've ever had?
Best received.
Like I'm talking like a lot of people gravitated to it, and you ended up you know what I'm saying? Because it was on a lot of lists. Like it, I mean, it was on a lot.
It made a lot of and what's amazing, not just lists, but top 10 best of the year lists.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, which is incredible because we released it ourselves. We put it out on our own label, on other labels, and we just said, you know what? Let's just do this ourselves. They're not offering us anything more or less than we can do, and for an obscure release from a band on its own label to get that kind of attention, almost screams to you, what's wrong with this music business that this band isn't on one of these labels that everybody knows and loves, right? Why hasn't somebody to this point been smart enough to say, man, we're going to grab this band and work this band and push this band and do something with them, you know? So to Giles' credit, I think he saw that and he goes, Jesus Christ, man, these guys they've done all the work. They've already done all this work, you know? And, but that just goes to show you, there are so many bands like Aska out there, you know, bands that have talent and drive and the push and the commitment and everything, and or even players like, you know, guitar players that can play rings around Eddie Van Halen and everything. And it's all a matter of who you know, maybe who you blow, and getting out there in the, you know, the public spotlight. Come on, man, because I mean, there's so many mediocre albums being released by name labels. I mean, very mediocre stuff.
I'd agree.
Or stuff that great and doesn't qualify. You know, doesn't. And yet, here we are. Check this out. And they're not making any of these top 20 lists. Yet an obscure band like Aska, boom, top 10 list, boom, KNAC, boom, 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 boom. I mean, it was amazing how many top 10 lists we made, top 20s, top 15s, top 5s. It was amazing. Yeah. And yet, to not have bigger labels come knocking or, you know, kicking at our door, trying to, you know, grab us, that just shows you how far out of favor this music style has fallen. And also how out of touch I think many of the people making some of these decisions at these labels may be.
I've done a whole episode on that.
Yeah, well, there you go. For a reason, right?
Yeah.
You did it for a reason because it's clear. It's clear.
I went through and did an entire episode of how they messed up, how there was a band. I just used one band as an example of how they messed up the promotion of this record they came out with from start to finish, from picking the singles to marketing the band, everything.
Yeah.
You know, so I get it, but look, BraveWords picked you guys up. Yeah. And I think you're in a good spot now because you have people there that are willing to work as hard as you do. I mean, really, realistically, that's what it is.
Yeah, and they have been. I got to tell you, we were with Pure Steel for years. Mm-hmm. They put out records for us. They had the Fire Eater release. It was on their label exclusively.
Yeah.
They had released the 3 albums prior to that, gave them vinyl and CD release, everything. And in all that time, and those guys at Pure Steel, we were like family. We were like brothers. I love Andreas. I love Marcus. But when Marcus left, it was very hard to get any kind of communication from them. I mean, I managed to bring Cloven Hoof onto the Pure Steel label. We brought them on board. And but it's like I've had more communication in these last couple months that we've been with BraveWords than I had for years with Pure Steel.
Yeah.
you know, and more. Here's the next step. Here's what you guys are going to do now. Here's what's going on next. Here's what which to me is almost a breath of fresh air. It's unheard of. This is not our first rodeo. It's not our first label. We've been with an Italian label, a German label, a U.S. label, and now BraveWords. I don't know if they're considered Canadian, American, Can-Am. I don't know, but
people are from everywhere there.
yeah,
I would say Canadian if Tim is the one that heads it. If I'm going to guess.
yeah. I mean, well, BraveWords Bloody Knuckles was a Canadian magazine back in the day, and that's where it's. But I think of all the labels we've ever been with, the most communicative, the ones with the biggest plan for the band have been BraveWords.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't praise them enough or give them hats off enough. One, for recognizing our potential, for hearing and loving the music, getting behind Night Strike as they have, and the stuff before it, and here's to the future, man. We'll see what it brings. But
I did a segment on one of my episodes about them, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I can't disagree with that at all. Couple more questions before we go. Do you have any plans to put out, start writing another record? Because I'm sure once they start promoting this, they're gonna be like, all right, dude, when's the next one? When are you guys gonna record and write the next album? Have you started writing for that at all?
Sir, we have. we have at this point, we have a couple of ideas in the can.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple of songs in the works, in process. And I have an entire, little recording device that I have filled with song ideas. I know Eric does too, our new guitar player, Eric Halpern, who joined us after Bryant's untimely departure. But one man's loss is another man's gain. So yeah, we definitely have started on that in anticipation, because if there's one thing about Aska, we've been real slow getting from one album to the next. A lot of that was because I was always, or Danny White, our drummer, we were always, have been involved with other band. Like I sang for Omen for 3 years.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. We told that story on the show at one point.
And I did, 2 albums with Banshee,
mm-hmm.
which I'm in, but the band now is kind of retired or dormant or whatever. But you know how it is with these things. They change moment to moment. A band could be asleep for a period of years and then suddenly say, hey, I want to do an album. Then you get back on it. But
sure.
So yeah, I mean, I was busy doing a lot of records, and someone always suffers when you're being pulled one way, the person trying to pull you this way, kind of gets the short shrift. But right now, I quit Cloven Hoof. I left the band. I'm not in Omen. I haven't been in there in years. Banshee's dormant now, so we have a lot of time to put my energies into Aska. And so, yes, we have started a new record, and it's a high priority on our agenda, for sure.
So my last question, we'll talk about this real briefly. I'm sure you remember the whole January 6th protest, and then obviously John Schaefer in the metal community. John Schaefer, Iced Earth, was obviously caught up in that for a bit. And honestly, he was pardoned, but the lawsuit itself was officially dropped. It's interesting. A lot of the hate for the guy has kind of dissipated over the last 4 years. Like, we did this discussion about him, and I was expecting like half people worshiping the guy and half the people coming at me and everybody there. But realistically, a lot of that hatred has gone away. And,
shouldn't have never been there. And I can elaborate on that if you want.
Should have never been. Oh, you mean
hated the guy? You should have never hated the guy.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
I was trying. Okay.
yeah, I don't mean he should have been at the Capitol. I mean, he should have never hit him, because if there's one thing that this country's founded on, right, First Amendment, we have the right to free speech. We have the right to, freedom of religion, press, and you have the right to assemble and redress your government. You have the right to protest against your government.
Yeah.
And that January 6th gathering, what was it if not a redress and a protest of what seems, and most likely to everyone with with an ounce of brain, know that election was rigged. That election was not. I mean, the election, the votes that were tallied, the most in history, and nobody's voted that many times, happened during the pandemic with mail-in, write-in ballots, which they've shown instance after instance. We've all seen the videos of the boxes coming out at 3 a.m, 4 a.m, after the polling places were long closed and the polling workers had gone home.
Mhm.
We saw the boxes coming out from under the table. So the election was the most fraudulent, and I think all elections have a modicum, a degree of fraud in them. It's been proven. Every election cycle, there are people that get arrested for fraud and for fake votes and voting more than once, not voting in the proper districts, and not being eligible to vote and making votes. So this happens all the time. But I think it happened in record numbers during the COVID year, the COVID election. And we saw videos and all manner of evidence of it. And people were not happy. Now, people are unhappy about all kinds of things in this country, right? The George Floyd killing, the death of George Floyd. I wouldn't say the killing, because he killed himself when he swallowed the methamphetamine or whatever it was that he had, the fentanyl. He killed himself. That was a suicide. I'm throwing all these zingers out there for the people. Dare he say that? George is a saint. He didn't kill himself. He was murdered by the cop. He was saying he couldn't breathe when he was sitting in the car, right? Anyway, so people protest all kinds of things. People protested the death of George Floyd. People protest Ben Shapiro speaking on campus. Milo Yiannopoulos giving a speech at the UT, whatever. Okay. So if people can protest those things, which are fairly insignificant in the big picture, why in the world would we think that they would be led to or motivated or want to protest something like an election that appeared fraudulent, right?
Yeah.
Who would want to protest such a thing? I was outraged myself, but I didn't have time to go protest in Washington. I've got things to do, But,
my whole thing was that John took the cheese off the mousetrap they laid out for everybody there.
Oh yeah, he did. And
that was really my only contention with it, was that by doing that, and it was an emotional, like I said, I just recorded an episode on this. It was an emotion. He let his emotions get the best of him, because I know the guy's smarter than that, probably should have realized that. And he didn't get the grand tour, but they basically, I actually read the lawsuit. He's in there for about a fifth of a page, for walking in, one of the first people that walked in with a water bottle and a can of bear spray, never sprayed at anybody. And he took the cheese right off the mousetrap, man. And that derailed his career, obviously. And then, it put his band members in a bad spot.
His life, not just his career, his entire life. They prison him and they messed with him. Oh my God. But, let me say this to that. Okay. He did. They baited the trap. He took the cheese. Great analogy.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to take credit for it, but actually one of the other people in the discussion said that, but it's the best analogy I could think of.
It's a good one. But here's the unfortunate part. The government our government, which we're there to redress, which the people that were there to redress, they shouldn't be baiting traps. Did they bait traps for the people burning down when BLM was burning cities across America for an entire summer? When Seattle was setting up its autonomous zone, were they baiting traps for these people? No. When they were burning courthouses in Oregon, when they were killing Trump supporters in the street and on the streets of Portland, was the government baiting traps for people? Not at all. No cheese laid, no traps. It was just they're just people peacefully protesting. Why is it that the only time it was a concern, the only time civil unrest was a concern, was when it was on Washington's doorstep, when it was on DC's doorstep?
Yeah.
Why was that?
Yeah, we talked about other government buildings getting taken over.
Absolutely, and it happened as early as October 7th, 2 years ago, when after October 7th, 2 years ago, when Hamas invaded Israel and killed the people at that music festival and raided those kibbutzes and murdered families with children and wives, raped and killed and maimed. When they did all that, and then people were, they wanted peace. They wanted to end to the hostilities from Israel, and they invaded these government buildings. No, I didn't see any arrests. I didn't see anybody saying, not J6, but whatever that date was.
Yeah,
they were in the.
I gotcha.
Spaces. So it's hypocritical.
Yeah,
the government only traps for its own citizenry, and then holding them for 4 years without punishment, and not a single person charged or prosecuted. Not a single one was charged with insurrection. Go figure.
I read. I think that the charge was seditious conspiracy. That's actually what was in the lawsuit. And weirdly enough, when I read the transcripts, I mentioned this I actually mentioned this in my episode. A lot of these people from these different organizations, a lot of them didn't even know each other. They were just lumping them all in this giant thing. That it was quite interesting the way that they worded it. And here the dude, he got sentenced to like $1,600 in probation. Then he was pardoned, I don't know, like 3 months later, right? So like, the hatred for the guy has gone down quite a bit. But no, I agree with you though. I get it. But, we had a long year that year, man. Everybody's tensions were really high and emotions are running high. But what I noticed is a lot of the same people on the Facebook page that were going after him in the comments when I posted about it, because I have this thing where I don't like to say anything about somebody unless they are able to make a statement to defend themselves, right? And I waited to talk about it again after he made a statement, and a lot of those same people, they're just like, dude, they're over it. They just want Iced Earth to come back, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's pretty much how that went. But I think everybody's tensions were high, and it was a pretty crazy time for sure. But yeah, I mean, how do you feel being involved in the music scene? How do you think before we get off here, how do you think he's going to be received?
I think he'll be forgiven and he'll be received just fine. But from his perspective, I would look at, Hansi Kirsch from Blind Guardian immediately abandoned him, with the Demons and Wizards project.
Yeah.
People that knew he's not a bad guy. He's just a patriot. He loves his country.
Yeah.
And to vilify him the way that they did, it was almost like the monkeys all going crazy. And when something happens in the lab, and then the monkeys all go,
yeah,
they all go nuts, and then they calm down.
I know Hansi came out, it had to be a couple years ago, saying the guy deserved a second chance. I think what was happening with him specifically is that everybody was going at him on the Blind Guardian page, and he had, how the media is over in Europe, dude. He had no idea what truly had gone on. And it was kind of like, okay, I've been friends with this guy for 30, 40 years. I'm going to kind of like say I'm done with everything and then figure out what the hell's going on and go from there. That's my interpretation. Just knowing him, that's what he did, because he has no idea what's going on. Because he's never really made any statement aside from the fact he thinks the guy deserves a second chance. So that's what it is. And I don't even know what his political beliefs are, but obviously to come out and say that, I just think that he had no idea what happened, and he couldn't communicate with John because John was in solitary confinement. How are you going to talk to him? So it's kind of like, I don't know how to handle this. I'm not going to see anything until I figure out what happened. And that's kind of what happened with him. But I'll tell you what, dude, some of the things that they were making on the page, the Blind Guardian page, it's something I discussed, were disgusting comments.
So stupid. It's so stupid.
Absolutely horrible.
You have to do with John Schaefer, other than the association with the singer and the guy. But, I mean, it's like this. The internet talks a lot of shit. There's so much shit talking. Like you read a Metallica board or a Metallica, Metallica sucks and Kirk sucks and Lars can't play and James is an alcoholic and this guy's a loser and this blah 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 blah, and they all talk shit, right? And then I go to a Metallica concert. I'm not the world's biggest Metallica fan. I mean, I could take them or leave them, but I'll go to the shows. I've been to the last 2 or 3 shows at times I've been through Dallas. And the place is packed to the rafters more than any other heavy metal band I've ever seen.
That's the squeaky wheel, George.
Yeah.
The one squeaky wheel out of 4,000 wheels on the shopping carts is what that is.
And so you have people, that's the thing of the internet. Same thing with Kiss, Motley Crue, whatever. You've got people that talk ungodly shit about all these bands online. They make fun of the people in them. They make fun of Gene Simmons. They make fun of, the Maiden guys, Nico, Yannick, whatever. And then you go to the concerts and they're full. And it's like, I mean, clearly there's a lot of people sitting at home talking a lot of shit, but it has no bearing in reality.
And they talk all that smack. And you know what they do? They help the band and keep the band's name out there.
Exactly. They just make you bigger than you are. They make you larger.
That's why Gene Simmons probably likes that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like you said, even bad publicity is good publicity. Just spell my name right. And, but now, there are instances where it can, backfire against you. Sometimes people want to, they want to.
Oh, no, I gotcha. Yeah. Well, hey man, I got to be honest. It was a fun conversation. Definitely always a blast. And I'm really excited for you to have this record deal, to be honest with you. I think that you're going to have a lot of success with this. And I think it's long overdue.
Well, I tend to agree with that sentiment. I appreciate it coming from your words. I've been a follower of your show for a long time and a guest on your show several times. And, I hope to continue to do so in the future. And, I think that, as the years have passed, we've got a nice little friendship going, and I dig you. I respect you. And I thank you for having me on your show.
The only thing I'm going to ask is if I somehow have a burned CD copy of the first Aska album, that you don't take it away from me.
Oh, no. You don't want to. Trust me, you don't want that. Maybe the second one. You might like the second one better.
No, I like the second one. I've heard them both.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let me see. Because in our mind, when Keith Knight and myself have discussed it, we're like, they're not far off.
No.
We will make them available to the public again. So
the second album's better. That's just my opinion.
Right.
Most debut albums really aren't usually the band's greatest records anyway. So, but yeah, the first album is omnidirectional. There's a lot of different ways that thing goes. The second album is a lot more refined. So, but anyhow,
the production is shit on that first album. And it's honestly, I always came, man, it sounded way better when we were recording it than when the guy mixed it at the end and put it out. It was just too wet, too sappy. It didn't. And of course, it was our first time in a real recording studio, so we didn't know what the fuck we did. But we learned a lot from our mistakes on the first record, corrected them with the second record. That's why you hear on that second record, it's a drier production, a lot more Rick Rubin, more. It's still kind of multi-directional, because we had three guys singing. We had three different vocalists, and each one writing in his style to his strengths. But I think the genesis, the seeds were there for everything, and it went from there.
Well, anyhow, my dude, thanks for the compliments again. It's always a blast.
Always fun with you, brother. Always fun. And one of the things I like about talking with you, you don't shy away from the difficult subjects that some other people. Oh no, that's too touchy. That's too firebrand. Oh, we don't want to talk about that. You go right in for it, and that's what makes your show so interesting, and why people want to listen to it.
Well, I just
the hot topics.
I just let people tell their story.
Yeah, but those, when you have roundtable discussions about John Schaefer, or you have a discussion about Iron Savior and their choice, and telling your opinion on. These are those hot topic buds that I think metal fans want to talk about, that some people shy away from, which you don't. You dive right into the pool, and as it should be. And you're not like crazy one way or the other. You're very centered and very thoughtful with your commentary, and it's refreshing. I mean, it's refreshing to see somebody like us that's not scared to go into the lion's den and throw out some of these tasty bits of meat.
Sure.
Yeah. Lions.
Well, hey man, it was great. And I can't wait to see this new video you have coming out. So
it'll be fun. But remember, it's been butchered. We had to take all the good stuff out. The end was just brilliant, but we had to take all that stuff out because bringing YouTube. Well, we may do down the line is on a different platform like Vimeo or something. We might release the uncut version
or Rumble
on there. Yeah, or Rumble or somewhere, and put out the safe one for the people that get offended and cry, and then put the other one on the platforms that say anything goes. But anyway, thank you, Tony. Good talking to you. And anybody that wants to get a copy of the Aska album, Night Strike, just go to askahq.com. You can buy copies all day and night there, autographed copies even. And if you want to start beginning the 21st, the music will be available on all Spotify, all the platforms where you can buy it, Apple and all the download places where people go to buy online music and get it, from BraveWords and all that stuff. So it'll be great, man.
Hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching. And if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video. And if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.